What's up everyone, welcome to the fifth part in the Skype clone series. In the last part of this series, we were able to lay out some foundation for our UI, and we made use of the page view widget to achieve the kind of tab-based UI that we want. In this video, we'll work on the first screen of the tab, that is the chat list screen. If you're new, then please consider subscribing, and I hope you enjoy this video. The first thing that you need to do is to remove this text widget from here and write container child chat list screen. This is the screen that we are talking about, and since it's a part of the page view widget, therefore just to keep things organized, I'll create a new folder with name page views, and in here I'll create a new file with the name chat list screen .dart. Over here I'll create a stateful widget and call it chat list screen. Now I'm going to go back to the home screen.dart file and include the chat list screen in here. So that should take care of the error that we had earlier. Moving on, I'll make a Firebase repository class object. Either you can make it inside of this state class or even outside as a global variable. I'm going to declare it as a global variable since I just want this same variable to be accessible throughout this file, and we'll mark it as final. After that, I'll create a string variable called currentUserID, then override the initState method. And inside of this method, I'll write repository getCurrentUser. So this method, as the name suggests, is basically responsible for getting the details of the currently signed in user. After that, it returns a Firebase user inside of the then callback, and we'll initialize the current user ID to user.id. And you'll see me do this quite a lot of times on different screens throughout the course, because no matter which screen we're on, we will need the current user ID in order to fetch or insert data. Oh, and don't forget to wrap this entire thing inside of a setState method. Now, inside of the build method, I'll return a scaffold and set its background color to universalColors.blackColor. Then for the app bar, I'll write CustomAppBar and pass in the context. Now we'll create a function of return type CustomAppBar and name it CustomAppBar, and it accepts the build context. As you can see that it's not a traditional or a simple app bar that we have over here. Therefore, we're going to need to create our very own custom app bar. So just over here, I'll create a folder named widgets, and inside of it, I'll create a file called appbar.dart. Then I'll create a stateless widget and name it CustomAppBar, which implements preferred sized widget. So every app bar argument needs to be of type preferred sized widget. Even the normal app bar that we see also implements preferred size widget. Then our custom app bar is going to have several properties. So the first one is going to be final widget title. Second, a list of widget called actions. Third, another widget called leading. And fourth, a boolean variable called center title. Then I will initialize all of them inside of this constructor. And just to be safe sided, I'm going to mark all of those as required. Then inside of the build method, I'll return a container, set its padding to edgeInsets.all 10, and provide it some decoration. So for the decoration, I'll write box decoration, color, and pass in the black color from the universal variables class. Then for the border, I'll write border, bottom, border side, color, universal variables dot separator color. And I'll set the width to 1.4 and style to border style dot solid. Now I'll come down to child, and inside of the child I'm going to pass the app bar widget. Then I'll write background color, universal variables dot black color, elevation 0, set the leading to the leading parameter that we receive from the top, actions to actions, center tile to center tile, and title to title. Alright, we are done. Now if you scroll to the very top of the file, you can see that it shows some red squiggly lines. And if I hover over it, the error message says that we are missing a concrete implementation of getter preferred size widget dot preferred size. So how to resolve this error? Well, if you control click on this preferred size widget, you can see that it's an abstract class which implements widget. And at the very bottom of this class, we have a getter of type size, and its name is preferred size. So we need to give a getter right over here. So at the bottom of this file, I'm going to write final size preferred size const size.fromHeight k toolbar height plus 10. So this preferred size getter is basically responsible for determining some height for your app bar. In this case, the value of height that we have passed is 10 more than the default height. Now I'll come back to the chat list screen and include the CustomAppBar file and return CustomAppBar. For the leading widget, I'll simply pass an icon button and set icon to icons.notification and set its color to colors.white and just leave the onPressed empty. Next, I'm going to pass a container of circular shape as a title, which contains the initials of the user. So I'll just pass a widget named userCircle, and this widget will accept the initials. Now I'll work my way backwards and create a string variable and name it initials. Then instead of the set state, we'll write initials equal utils.getInitials and pass in the user's display name. Now open up the utilities file present inside of the utils folder and create a static function named getInitials, and it accepts the user's name. So ideally, any name consists of a first name followed by a blank space followed by the last name. So what we're going to do is split the name from blank space, and the split function returns a list of string. So I'll store that list inside nameSplit variable. After that, to get the first name, I'll create a variable called firstInitial and set it to nameSplit 00. So the first 0 retrieves the entire first name and the second 0 retrieves the first letter of the first name. Following the same process again, I'll create a string variable called lastNameInitial and set it to nameSplit 10. So this retrieves the first letter of the last name. And then we simply concatenate the first name initial and the last name initial and return it back. Now I'm going to come back to chat list screen and create a stateless widget and name it userCircle. And I'll create a final string text and initialize it inside of the userCircle's constructor. Then inside of the build method, I will return a container, set its height to 40, width to 40, and provide it with some box decoration. So I'll set its border radius to borderRadius.circular 50 to set the shape of the container to circle. And then I'll write color universal variables dot separator color. And then I'll pass a stack widget as a child for our container. The reason why we are using a stack is because we'll need to place two widgets on top of one another. First one's going to be a text widget, whereas the other one is going to be a little indicator at the bottom right corner of the circle which depicts or indicates the status of a user. So I'll write align and set the alignment to center. Then for the child, I'll write text and pass in the text that we receive. Then for the style, I'll write text style, font weight dot bold, color, and set the color to universal variables dot light blue color and set the font size to 13. Then the second child is going to be the indicator. So I'll write alignment dot bottom right. Then I'll pass a container as a child for this align widget, and I'll set the height of that container to 12, width to 12. Then we'll pass in some decoration, shape box shape dot circle, border dot all, color, and set the color to universal variables dot black color and set the width to 2. Then for the color of this container, I'll write universal variables dot online dot color. Online dot color is basically a green color indicating that the user is currently online. Alright, that's all we need to do for the userCircle. Now I'll scroll up to CustomAppBar and set the center title to true. Then for the actions, we'll pass a list of widgets starting with search icon and an options icon. Alright, let's take a look and see how it all looks. So I'm going to open up the terminal and write flutter run to run our app. So the app is launched and it looks good, just the way we wanted it to. Now I'm going to create a floating action button. So I'll write floating action button, new chat button. And then we'll create a stateless widget called new chat button. And we'll return a container over here. Normally we use a floating action button widget which Flutter provides in order to create floating action buttons. But I could not find a way to apply gradient as a background color to the floating action button widget. So I decided to go with a container. Then I'll provide some decoration, gradient, universal colors, dot, fab gradient. This will render a rectangle, but we need a circular button. So you could either use the shape parameter to set the shape of the container to circle, or you could use the border radius parameter. Then I'll pass an icon for the child. It would be an edit icon. Set the color to colors.wide, size to 25, and padding to 25 as well. Right, let's take a look. The only thing that is left is a chat list container. So for the body, I'll write chat list container and pass in the current user ID. Now, chat list container is going to be a stateful widget, and we receive the current user ID over here and initialize it inside of the constructor. Although we are not going to be using that in this video. Then we'll return a container inside of the build method and pass in a list view.builder. Then I'll set the padding to 10 from all sides and item count to just 2. After that, I'll write item builder, and this gives us a context and an index. Now we need to return something from this item builder, and that something is going to be a custom tile widget. Because if you look at the finished versions, all these list items look kind of the same. The ones on the chat screen look bigger in size, whereas the ones on the contact and log screen look a bit smaller. So we'll just create a custom widget in order to reuse it over and over again. Therefore, I'll come over to widgets folder and create a file called CustomTile.dart. Now inside of the custom file, I'm going to create a stateless widget and name it CustomTile. Then I'm going to specify some of its properties. So I'll write final widget leading, final widget title, final widget icon, and then we'll have a subtitle, a trailing widget, the widget that is shown at the end of any list tile. I'll provide it with some margin, and there's going to be a boolean variable called mini. This mini is what determines whether the custom tile would be a larger tile or a smaller tile. Then for the on tap, I'll write final gesture tap callback on tap, and for a long press, I'll write final gesture long press callback on long press. On tap, as you can guess, is only triggered when you tap on the custom tile, whereas on long press is triggered when you hold the custom tile for a while. And then I'm going to initialize all of these inside of the constructor. Now I'm going to mark leading as required, title as required, and subtitle as required. And we are also going to provide some default values for some of these properties. So I'll set the margin to 0 and set the mini to true. Then inside of the build method, I'll return a gesture detector, and I'll set on tap to on tap and on long press to on long press. I'll pass in a container as a child for our gesture detector, and I'll set its padding to edgeInsets.symmetric horizontal mini $10:0. So if mini is true, then there's a symmetrical padding of 10, or else there's no padding. Then we're going to set the margin to margin, child, row, children. The first child for this row is going to be leading, the leading widget which we are going to pass. The second child is going to be expanded, child, container, and then here I'll write margin edgeinsets.only left mini $10:15. Then for the padding as well, I'll write edgeinsets.symmetric, and we are going to give a vertical padding. So if mini is true, then there should be a padding of 3 units, or else there should be a padding of 20 units. Then I'm going to give it some box decoration. So I'll give a border, and I'll target the bottom attribute of border, and I'll write border side width, set the width to 1 and color to universal variables dot separator color. Then as a child for this container, I'll again pass in a row, and I'll write main axis alignment to main axis alignment dot space between. Then I'll write children. Now inside of this row, I'm going to write column and set the cross axis alignment of this column to start children, and the first child for this column is going to be the title. Then after that, I'll write a size box of height 5. Then again we'll write a row, children, and now I'll write icon ? Container. What this really means is icon not equal null ? Icon : container. So if the value of icon is not null, then show the icon, or else show the container. So Dart allows us to write that in shorter and convenient way. After that, the second child is going to be the subtitle widget which we'll pass. Then after that, come out of this column and write trailing : container. This also means the same, that if the trailing property is not null, then show trailing, or else show container. Great. Now that we have the custom tile, I'll just return it and set the mini option to false, since we want a bigger version with larger margin. Then we'll leave the on tap empty, set the title to text, and give it some style. And then for the subtitle, we'll just write anything like, say, hello. In this case, subtitle would act as the last message sent by a user. The only thing that's left now is leading. So I'll create a container and give it some constraints. We'll set the max height and max width to 60. Then we'll pass a stack as a child for the container, and we'll work on it just the way we worked on the user circle. So the first child is going to be a circle avatar widget with max radius set to 30. background color to colors.gray, and background image to network image, and then we'll pass in this URL. The second child is going to be an align widget with alignment set to bottom right. Then we'll pass a container as a child and set its height and width to 13. After that, we'll just give it some decoration. So I'll set its shape to circle, color to universal variables.online.color, and we'll also provide some border to it, with color set to universal variables.black color, and width to 2. Alright, I think that's it. Let's restart the app again and see how it all looks. There we go. So the chat list screen is almost finished. Of course, most of it is dummy data, which we'll soon replace with dynamic real data fetched from the database. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Source code for this part is linked in the description below. In the next video, we'll start off by working on the search screen and querying Firestore database. So don't forget to subscribe to the channel in order to receive updates about the latest videos as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.